In our previous report, we established the physical bottleneck of the Uchiha, the rare MM genotype, the high voltage hardware required to even sustain a Mangekyō. But having the engine is not the same as turning the key. Today we analyze the software phase. We are moving past the DNA and into the consciousness, examining the precise psychological singularity that rewires the brain, and the brutal metabolic toll that begins the moment the eye opens. This is the audit of the Uchiha mind. When most fans discuss the Mangekyō Sharingan, they focus on trauma, the grief, the loss, the emotional collapse. But trauma alone is not enough. If trauma were sufficient, the Uchiha district would have been filled with gods. The true catalyst is determination. Trauma is the spark. Determination is the software that overclocks the system. In Shinobi anatomy, if the caudate nucleus is the engine, then determination is the overclocking protocol that forces the brain to push chakra into the eyes at frequencies no human should survive. The curse of hatred is a poetic version. The biological reality is far more precise. When Uchiha experiences catastrophic loss, the brain does not simply mourn, it fixates. This fixation, this absolute, unbreakable determination, acts as a psychic compressor, forcing the brain to generate a high-frequency chakra that overloads the analytical cortex. This is obsessive neural locking. It is the moment when every thought, every emotion, every memory collapses into a single blinding point of resolve. For Obito, it was the refusal to accept Rin's death. For Sasuke, it was the singular obsession with killing Itachi. For Shisui, it was the determination to protect the village at any cost. For Itachi, it was the resolve to shoulder the burden of genocide alone. Different stories, same neurological signature. A path of will so intense that it forces the eye to evolve or forces the user to break. At the peak of determination, the Uchiha brain enters a state we call the emotional singularity. All neural pathways converge. All emotional bandwidth collapses into one directive. The brain becomes a laser. This laser-like focus produces a chakra frequency so intense that it either forces the eye to mutate or burns out the optic nerve entirely. This is why the Mangekyō is so rare. Not because trauma is rare, but because true determination is. Most people break under loss. A Mangekyō user chooses a path and walks it with such ferocity that their biology has no choice but to adapt. While the world blames the curse of hatred, the forensic truth is far more clinical. The Mangekyō is not born from grief. It is born from fixation. When Uchiha experiences loss, the brain doesn't simply feel pain. It locks onto a single path of will, compressing every emotion into a singular directive. This determination acts as a psychic overclock, forcing the brain to generate a chakra frequency so intense that the eyes must evolve or collapse under the strain. The Mangekyō is not the result of suffering, it is the result of resolve. But even determination has limits. The Mangekyō grants power, but at a catastrophic biological cost. Shisui Uchiha's awakening is one of the most haunting entries in our psychological audit. Unlike Sasuke or Obito, whose Mangekyō emerged from external trauma, Shisui's mutation was triggered by something far more corrosive: internal guilt. At just 8 years old, Shisui experienced a psychological collapse so profound that it rewired his neural pathways and forced his eyes to evolve long before his body was ready. His Mangekyō was not born from loss. It is born from self-condemnation. According to the Itachi Shinden records, Shisui awakened his Mangekyō at 8 years old during the Third Shinobi World War. The catalyst was not grief, not rage, not vengeance. It was envy. During a retreat, Shisui had a split-second opportunity to save his teammate, a boy he admired and resented in equal measure. He hesitated, and in that hesitation, the boy died. Shisui realized in an instant that he had killed his friend through inaction. This was the moment his childhood psyche shattered. His determination was not to destroy an enemy or rewrite the world, it was to correct himself. Shisui's awakening represents a rare psychological phenomenon, determination born from self loathing. His brain did not fixate on an external threat, it fixated on himself. This created a unique form of obsessive neural locking, a feedback loop of remorse, guilt, and self correction that produced a chakra frequency unlike any other Mangekyō user. Risasuke's determination was outward, vengeance, and Obito's was escapist, rejecting reality. Shisui's was inward, a vow to never allow his own impulses to harm another person again. It is no coincidence that Shisui's Mangekyō ability, Koto Amatsukami, is the most powerful mind-shaping technique in existence. His brain, traumatized by his inability to control his own dark impulse, envy, evolved an eye that can control the impulses of others. His Mangekyō is the biological manifestation of a child's desperate desire to ensure no one else ever suffers because of a moment of hesitation or weakness. Shisui's power is not domination, it is atonement. Shisui Uchiha's Mangekyō did not awaken from loss or hatred. It awakened from guilt. At 8 years old, he hesitated for a single heartbeat, and that hesitation cost his friend's life. His determination was not to kill, avenge, or escape. It was to correct himself, to ensure that no one else would ever suffer because of his own impulses. This vow of self-correction rewired his brain, producing a chakra frequency so precise that his Mangekyō manifested as Koto Amatsukami, the ultimate tool of internal control. Shisui's eye is not a weapon. It is an apology written into biology. But not all determination is born from guilt. Some is born from duty. Itachi Uchiha's psychological audit is the most complex in our entire study. His Mangekyō did not awaken from rage, grief, or guilt. It awakened from acceptance, a conscious decision to shoulder a burden no one should ever carry. Where Sasuke's determination was reactive, and Obito's was a catastrophic snap, Itachi's was a calculated vow. His Mangekyō was born from absolute responsibility. Itachi awakened his Mangekyō when Shisui entrusted him with his eye and then took his own life. But the emotional root was not grief alone. It was the unbearable realization that his mentor had died to protect a village that was actively plotting against their clan, and Itachi was now the only one left who can carry Shisui's will. This was not trauma. This was burden. Itachi did not break. He chose. He made a silent vow to carry Shisui's will, even if it meant becoming a monster in Sasuke's eyes, and a traitor to his clan, and a ghost in his own village. His determination was not emotional chaos. It was moral calculus. This created a unique binary manifestation in his Mangekyō. Tsukiyomi, total mental control. Amaterasu, total physical destruction. Two extremes, two tools, two burdens, one for shaping perception, one for eliminating threats. Itachi's Mangekyō is a software embodiment of someone who decided to rewrite the world to protect his brother. Itachi's powers represent the two things he needed to master in order to save Sasuke and preserve the fragile peace of the village. First, time and perception, Tsukiyomi, to control the narrative, to manipulate events without violence, to buy time in a world collapsing around him. Second, inescapable force, Amaterasu, to eliminate threats instantly, to end battles before they begin, to prevent unnecessary casualties. Itachi's analytical cortex does not simply predict movements, it calculates the moral cost of every second spent in combat. His Mangekyō is not a weapon of hatred, it is a tool of surgical mercy. Itachi Uchiha's Mangekyō did not awaken from rage or despair. It awakened from responsibility. When Shisui died, Itachi accepted a burden that no one should bear, the duty to protect his brother, his clan's legacy, and the fragile peace of the village. His determination was not emotional chaos. It was a vow, a promise to carry Shisui's will, even if it meant becoming a villain in the eyes of the world. This vow split his Mangekyō into two extremes, Tsukiyomi to shape perception and Amaterasu to erase threats. Itachi's eyes are not symbols of hatred. They are the biological scars of someone who chose peace over himself. But if Itachi represents sacrifice, Sasuke represents the opposite, the weaponization of pain. To prevent total psychological collapse, Sasuke's brain performed a hard pivot, a full rewrite of his determination. His target changed, his purpose changed, his worldview changed, but his resolve did not. His determination shifted from vengeance against a person to vengeance against a system. This is the retributive protocol, a determination that seeks not justice, but correction through destruction. Sasuke's Mangekyō is the only one in the clan that expresses both inheritance and self-determination. His left eye carries Amaterasu, inherited from Itachi's martyr protocol, represents the unquenchable fire of the Uchiha legacy, a flame born from sacrifice. His right eye has Kagetsuchi, Sasuke's own creation, represents the ability to shape, control, and extinguish that legacy, the biological expression of a man who refuses to be consumed by his past and instead insists on mastering it. His Mangekyō is not destructive, it is entropic mastery. Sasuke's Susanoo is the clearest mirror of his psychology. As his determination shifted from justice to retribution to pure destruction, his Susanoo evolved accordingly. His skeletal form was protector, his armored form avenger, his demonic form executioner. This proves that the caudate nucleus does not simply trigger the Mangekyō. It continuously paints the Susanoo based on the user's emotional frequency. Sasuke's Susanoo is not armor, it is a psychological portrait. Sasuke Uchiha is the only Mangekyō user whose determination was rewritten after awakening. When Obito revealed the truth of Itachi's sacrifice, Sasuke's identity collapsed. His brain performed a hard pivot, redirecting his vengeance from a person to an entire system. This shift manifested biologically. Amaterasu, the inherited flame of martyrdom, and Kagetsuchi, the power to shape and command that flame. His chakra became a cold singularity, and his Susanoo evolved into a demonic executioner, a reflection of a man who no longer seeks justice, but retribution. Sarada Uchiha represents a historic break in the Uchiha psychological profile. For 1,000 years, the Mangekyō has been synonymous with hatred, grief, loss, and vengeance. Sarada shattered that pattern. Her awakening proves that the Mangekyō is not tied to negative emotions, only to emotional intensity. She is the first documented case of a positive singularity, a Mangekyō born not from despair, but from desperation to save. Her determination was not to destroy the world, but to preserve the truth within it. Sarada awakened her Mangekyō at the moment Ida's omnipotence rewrote the world. Everyone else accepted the new reality. Only Sarada and Sumire felt the crushing weight of the distortion. She watched the world turn against Baruto, a boy she trusted, admired, and loved, and she was powerless to stop it. This was not grief. This was empathy-driven despair. The terror of losing someone not because they died, but because the world had forgotten who they were. Sarada's determination was not to rewrite the world, it was to anchor the truth. While previous Uchiha used their eyes to force the world to match their pain, Sarada used hers to resist the world's distortion and protect a single life. Her Mangekyō is a biological expression of a girl who refuses to let reality erase someone she loved. This is the altruistic mandate. Sarada's Mangekyō pattern symbolizes life, hope, preservation, truth. Her ability is likely to involve reality anchoring, truth perception, high finesse protection, illusion resistance. She is the first Uchiha whose Mangekyō leans towards stability rather than entropy. Sarada's awakening proves a groundbreaking truth. The caudate nucleus does not care about morality, it cares about intensity. Her love for Boruto and her dream of becoming Hokage created the same neural lock that Sasuke's hatred once did. But unlike her ancestors, Sarada's determination is stable. She is a stable anomaly, a Mangekyō user whose psyche may degrade far less than those who awaken through hatred. She was the first Uchiha whose power is rooted not in destruction, but in preservation. Obito Uchiha represents the most extreme psychological mutation in our entire audit. Where Shisui awakened through guilt and Itachi awakened through duty, Obito awakened through nihilism. His determination was not to avenge, protect, or correct. It was to reject. At the moment of Rin's death, Obito did not simply break. He reached a conclusion so absolute that it overrode every belief, every value, every piece of software he once lived by. His Mangekyō was born from the Great Refusal. Obito's entire worldview was built on one dream: to return to the leaf, become a hero, and confess his love for Rin. In one instant, that dream was annihilated. He watched the person who represented his entire world die at the hands of his best friend. This was not grief. This was idealistic collapse. Obito's brain did not simply mourn. It rebooted. He reached a logical conclusion that shattered his identity. I am in hell. This reality is a mistake. This is what we classify as an existential breach, a psychological event where the mind rejects the validity of the world itself. His determination was no longer to survive, win, or change reality. It was to escape it. This is why his Mangekyō did not produce fire, illusion, or force. It produced absence. Because Obito's determination was to reject the physical world, his Mangekyō manifested the ultimate expression of that desire, Kamui, the power to not exist. His eyes carved a hole out of the universe, so he would never have to touch this reality again. He isn't moving through space, he is denying his presence within it. This is why Kamui feels illegal. It ignores the laws of physics, because Obito's determination ignores the laws of reality. Obito's Kamui is the most illegal ability in the Uchiha arsenal because it's not an enhancement of reality, it is a denial of it. His brain is constantly calculating the overlap between the physical world and the Kamui dimension, maintaining perfect phasing as he is living in two universes at once. His Mangekyō is not a weapon of hatred, it is a refusal to exist in a world that betrayed him. Obito Uchiha's Mangekyō did not awaken from grief. When Rin died, Obito reached a conclusion so absolute that it rewrote his entire identity. This world is wrong. His determination was not to fight or avenge. His was to escape, to nullify reality itself. His Mangekyō manifested Kamui, the biological expression of not being there. He's not bending space, he is denying his presence within it. Obito's power is not a technique. It is a void carved into the universe by a boy who decided that the world was an illusion. We may not possess frame-by-frame footage of Madara, Izuna, or Fugaku's awakening their Mangekyō, but we do possess something far more valuable, their psychological profiles. And when we apply the determination model, the idea that the Mangekyō emerges not from trauma alone, but from a singular obsessive path of will, their awakenings become not mysterious, but inevitable. Each of these men lived a life defined by neurolock, a fixation so absolute that their brains would have to have been forced to evolve or collapse. Madara grew up in the Warring States period, a world where death was not an event, but a daily environment. He lost 4 of his 5 brothers. His baseline psyche was already overclocked by a constant grief, fear, and survival instinct. But Madara's determination was not to mourn, it was to dominate. Madara's singular fixation was to become so powerful that no one, not even the Senju, could ever take another brother from him. This explains why his Mangekyō, and later EMS, manifested the perfect Susanoo, the ultimate biological fortress. Madara's brain did not want to fight. It wanted to end the possibility of losing. His Mangekyō is the psychological embodiment of someone who decided the world would never hurt him again. Izuna is described as harmonic and devoted. Madara is equal in skill, but opposite in temperament. Where Madara was ambitious, Izuna was devotion. Izuna's resolve was rooted in loyalty to Madara, to the clan, and to their shared dream. His determination was not self-focused, it was collective. His final act, willingly giving his eyes to Madara on his deathbed, proves his neural architecture was wired for total sacrifice. Izuna's Mangekyō was the product of a mind that had merged his identity with the survival of the lineage. His power was not born from hatred, it was born from devotion so absolute that it erased the boundaries between self and clan. According to Itachi Shinden, Fugaku awakened his Mangekyō during the Third Great Ninja War, after a close friend sacrificed their life to save him. But unlike Madara or Izuna, Fugaku's determination was quiet. Fugaku's resolve was to carry the weight of the clan's future while being squeezed by the village's distrust and the clan's rising anger. He kept his Mangekyō secret to prevent a revolution he wasn't ready to lead. His nickname, Wicked Eye Fugaku, suggests his visual prowess was legendary even before the massacre. His determination was not to dominate or sacrifice, but to suppress, to find a bloodless path in a world demanding blood. His analytical cortex was likely optimized for long-term strategic simulation, a trait he passed directly to Itachi. Even without flashpoint footage, the forensic evidence is overwhelming. Madara, Izuna, and Fugaku all exhibit the same neurological signature seen in every confirmed Mangekyō awakening. Their lives were defined by singular, unbreakable determination. Madara's hunger for power, Izuna's devotion to his brother, Fugaku's burden of leadership. Each represents a different flavor of the same phenomenon. The Mangekyō is not a reaction to sadness. It is the brain's attempt to solve trauma through an evolutionary leap in power. With Sarada Uchiha, the Mangekyō enters a new era, no longer bound to hatred, no longer chained to loss. The eye of the Uchiha has finally proven that love can burn just as fiercely as vengeance. The spectrum is complete. The software of the Mangekyō is not darkness, it is intensity, and Sarada is the first to wield that intensity without falling into the abyss. We have audited the hardware, lineage, and the software, psychology, but the Mangekyō Sharingan is not merely a genetic gift or a psychological mutation. It is a biological anomaly, a power the human body was never meant to sustain. Even if Uchiha possesses the right bloodline, the right determination singularity, and the right neural architecture, the body itself becomes the final barrier. This is the metabolic wall, the reason history is not overflowing with Mangekyō users. Sasuke once described using the Mangekyō as every cell in my body being on fire. This is not a metaphor, it is a physiology. The Mangekyō does not simply consume chakra, it burns through stamina, cellular integrity, and life force. Most Uchiha would collapse from organ failure, chakra depletion, or neural shock before the eye even fully manifest. The Mangekyō is a high-output engine running inside a human chassis that was never designed for it. The Mangekyō is a high-voltage signal running through low-voltage wiring. Every activation causes microscarring of the optic nerve, degradation of the retinal chakra receptors, and erosion of the analytical cortex. The light fading is not symbolic, the hardware is melting. The EMS is not an upgrade, it is a hardware transplant, replacing a burnt-out receiver with a fresh one capable of handling the load. The Mangekyō is so metabolically expensive that the only way to survive long-term is to steal the eyes of someone with nearly identical genetic markers. When we combine all three pillars, the probability of a Mangekyō awakening becomes microscopic. First, the lineage requirement. They must possess high Indra-frequency genetics, typically main house or noble branch. Second, the psychological requirement. They must experience a determination singularity, a moment of emotional intensity so extreme that it rewires the brain. And third, the physiological requirement. They must have enough chakra capacity to survive the initial system shock without dying or collapsing. Even among pure-blooded Uchiha, the odds of all three aligning are astronomically low. This is why only 7 or 8 users appear across 1,000 years of history. The Mangekyō is not rare by chance, it is rare by design. The Mangekyō Sharingan is not a gift, it is a biological rebellion. To awaken it, an Uchiha must possess the right lineage, the right psychological singularity, and the right metabolic resilience. Even then the body fights back. The eye burns the user from the inside, melting its own wiring and demands a new vessel to survive. This is why the Mangekyō is not an evolution, it is a mutation, a power so costly that only a handful of Uchiha have ever survived its awakening. The Mangekyō is the peak of Uchiha biology, but it is not the only anomaly in our records. To keep this audit focused on the rarity of the eye, I've had to sequester 2 of the most controversial files for their own dedicated investigations. First, if the Mangekyō is a biological emergency, why was Obito Uchiha able to ignore the metabolic cause for nearly 2 decades without a hardware swap? Our next report will examine the cheat code, the cellular entanglement between Uchiha DNA and the Hashirama cell catalyst. Second, we must address the Black Power phenotype. How did a singular monk's philosophy of Ninshu mutate into a genetic military powerhouse? We're going back to this source to find the exact moment the software of a religion became the hardware of a bloodline. I want to be notified when these forensic files are declassified. Ensure you are subscribed to the archive. Leave a comment below with which anomaly we should prioritize, the hybrid or the genotype. Audit complete.